So for the finale this week, what I'm gonna cover, it's all gonna be about archetypes in Ashes Creation and everything you need to know about them to get prepped for Alpha 2, which is coming very soon. And obviously we've got more information about some of the archetypes than others, but this is what we know currently and it's all the facts we've got and the latest information. So let's start with the basics and for all intents and purposes, pretend that you're watching this video, you don't know anything, and I think that's the best way to do it. The 8 archetypes are gonna be the tank, the fighter, the rogue, the ranger, the mage, the cleric, summoner and bard. And once you've chosen your primary archetype, you will not be able to change it unless you make a separate character. The game is trying to make it so it's not very alt friendly. Now if you're more a hardcore player like myself or semi-hardcore, I think you'll find ways around it, and during Alpha 2 I'm sure you're going to be able to test out many of the different archetypes, especially when wipes come. Just start as a new archetype and really test out everything you can, and that would be my advice for you, as long as it sticks in the parameters of what your guild's needing, so you're not switching out constantly, because that could be a bit of a headache. You're never really going to get the feel for the class if you do that. Currently we know rogue and summoner will not be ready for the start of Alpha 2, and that's fine. If they need to take more time to develop the rogue, which is actually what I want to be, that is totally fine, and I would rather see a finished, better polished version of that, and it gives them the time to focus on Alpha 2, and then they can do that during Alpha 2. Same for a couple of my members wanting to be summoners or people out there I've heard. We're just going to have to wait, and then maybe when a wipe comes, because we do know it is clarified that the first patch and update for Alpha 2, it is going to be the rogue and summoner, so that's nice to know. You won't be waiting a long time. Maybe a wipe will come with that, and then you can switch over, and if not, make a secondary character. Each archetype will have its own resource and archetype abilities, which we'll jump into now, and I'll cover them all fully. So tank is the first archetype I'm going to be jumping into, and the tank's class resource is going to be called courage. Tanks will primarily be used for tanking, which is fairly obvious I would imagine, and the tank class combinations are: if you combine a tank and a bard, you get argent. If you combine a tank with a tank, you're going to get guardian, but I know a lot of people are trying to get that name changed. Actually, there's multiple people wanting a name change, many content creators, whether or not that will happen, but it wouldn't actually surprise me if they did change that name. And if you combine tank with summoner, you get keeper. Tank with fighter, you're going to get the knight. Tank with rogue, you're going to get knight shield. Tank with cleric, you're going to get paladin. Tank with mage, you get spell shield, and tank with ranger, you're going to get warden. And the archetype abilities we know the tank has currently is Absorption Field, Aegis, Astral Bowlers, Grapple, Grit, Inciting Strikes, Indomitable Spirit, Protect, Rush of Courage, Shake It Off, Shield Assault, Slam, Trembling Bellow, and Hatred. The next class we're getting into is Fighter, and Fighter is mainly going to be a DPS class. Its class resource is Combat Momentum, and the class combinations for it are Fighter with Bard and you get Bladed Dancer, Fighter with Tank you get Dreadnought, Fighter with Summoner you get Blade Caller, Fighter with Fighter you get Weapon Master, Fighter with Rogue you get Shadow Blade, Fighter with Cleric you get High Sword, Fighter with Mage you get Spell Sword, Fighter with Ranger you get Hunter. But for me, that Fighter and Rogue getting Shadow Blade, I think that's going to be somewhat fairly nice, and I can't wait to check that out. And the archetype abilities we know for fighters are Battle Cry, Blitz, Blood Fusion, Brutal Cleave, Cataclysm, Crippling Blow, Exert, Form of Celerity, Form of Ferocity, Form of Fluidity, Knockout, Leap Strike, Lethal Blow, Lunging Assault, Maim, Overpower, Rupture and Whirlwind. Next up we've got the Cleric. This is going to be a healing archetype for Ashes Creation. Its class resource is called Divine Power, and the class combinations for it are Cleric and Tank gets you Apostle, Cleric and Summoner gets you Shaman, Cleric and Fighter gets you Templar, Cleric and Rogue gets you Shadow Disciple, Cleric and Cleric gets you High Priest, and Cleric and Mage gets you Oracle, Cleric with Ranger gets you Protector. The archetype abilities for the Cleric are Barrier, Bless Weapon, Castigation, Chains of Restraint, Communal Restoration, Condemn, Consecrating Wave, Defiant Light, Deliverance, Devotion, Divine Censor, Divine Flare, Divine Infusion, Divine Light, Flash Cure, Healing Touch, Judgment, Mend, Resplendent Beam, Resurrection, Smite, Soothing Glow, Wings of Salvation. Now, next up is the Ranger. Depending on primary weapon you choose, it's mostly gonna be a roll for range physical damage. drill, which is fairly obvious. It's not been revealed yet what the class resource for Ranger is, but we do know the class combinations are Ranger and Tank is Sentinel, Ranger and Summoner is Falconer, Ranger and Fighter you get Strider, Ranger and Rogue you get Scout, Ranger and Cleric you get Soulbow, Ranger and Mage you get Scion, Ranger and Ranger you get Hawkeye. Now the class abilities we know is Airstrike, Barrage, Bear Trap, Call of the Wild, Camouflage, Disengaged, Headshot, Hunt of the Bear, Hunt of the Raven, Hunt of the Tiger, Imbue Ammo, Barbed, Imbue Ammo, Concussion, Imbue Ammo, Weighted, Lightning Reload, Mark of the Bear, Mark of the Raven, Mark of the Tiger, Piercing Shot, Raining Death, Scatter Shot, Snipe, Thundering Shot and Vine Field. So jumping on to the last class that we have a lot of information on, which is Mage. And Mage is going to be a ranged magical damage dealer, so your DPS. We also don't know the class resource for the Mage yet either. I imagine they're still working on that, but we do know its class combinations. So Mage and Cleric you get the Acolyte, Mage and Mage you get Archwizard, Mage and Fighter you get Battle Mage, Mage and Rogue you get Shadowcaster, Mage and Bard you get Sorcerer, Mage and Ranger you get Spell Hunter, Mage and Tank you get Spellstone, and Mage and Summoner you get Warlock. So the class abilities for the Mage are Arcane Beam, Arcane Circle, Arcane Empowerment, Arcane Eye, Arcane Volley, Ball Lightning, Blink, Blizzard, Chain Lightning, Combust, Cone of Cold, Elemental Empowerment, Fireball, Fissure, Frostbolt, Lightning Strike, Magma Field, Meteor, Quake, Shell and Slumber. So Bard is the next archetype, and it's going to mainly be a support class, and Bard is currently being worked on and should be ready for Alpha 2, and hopefully we see that in a stream leading to Alpha 2. Its class combinations are Bard with Mage is Magician, Bard with Bard is Minstrel, Bard with Tank is Siren, Bard with Ranger you get Song Warden, Bard with Summoner you get Songcaller, Bard with Cleric you get Soul Weaver, Bard with Fighter you get Telsword, and Bard with Rogue you get Trickster. The only downside is, unfortunately, we don't yet know any of the class abilities for Bard. However, we do know it's going to be centered around skill-based combinations through melodies, dances, songs and stories. Then you can choose to activate buffs that augment tanking, evasion, DPS and healing, and obviously we do want to know more about that, but in due time I'm sure we'll see that. So up next we have the Rogue. Now it was revealed in one of the recent live streams it was not going to be ready for the start of Alpha 2, but hopefully we would get it with one of the first patches with the Summoner. Rogue will have utility skills specifically for dungeons for finding hidden doors, traps and additional treasures, and they will have true stealth, so fully invisible, you can't see them. They're going to be a really dangerous class, I would say, our archetype. It's going to be quite fun to play, but we're going to have to see how it looks when we get the actual visuals and we see everything to do with them. Hopefully the first patch of Alpha 2, but testing, you just don't know how these things are going to play out. We do know the class combinations, and a Rogue with Rogue is an Assassin, Rogue with Bard you get a Charlatan, Rogue with Cleric you get a Cultist, Rogue with Fighter you get a Duelist, Rogue with Mage you get a Night Spell, and Rogue with Ranger you get a Predator, Rogue with Tank you get Shadow Guardian, Rogue with Summoner you get Shadow Lord. And then we have the Summoner. Summoner is the final archetype for us to talk about. It's something we haven't seen yet, and it also won't be present for the start of Alpha 2. It said the Summoner is the archetype that will be able to fill in the gaps in the party and can easily shift their roles to do so. The class combinations for Summoner are Summoner with Ranger you get Beastmaster, Summoner with Tank you get Brood Warden, Summoner with Summoning you get Conjurer, Summoner with Bard you get Enchanter, Summoner with Cleric you get Necromancer, Summoner with Rogue you get Shadowmancer, Summoner with Mage you get Spelldancer, and Summoner with Fighter you get Wild Blade. So to jump into secondary archetype and classes are when you have chosen both a primary and a secondary archetype, which happen at level 25, and they can't be easily changed. So it might be a bit of a ball ache, might be a bit of an effort to change, which is fair. So you've got to bear in mind it's not like your primary archetype abilities. The secondary archetype will not provide you any additional skills. It's just gonna augment the abilities your primary class already has. So that is the end to the Road to Alpha 2 series. Bit more of a chilled one, and I know there isn't a ton of information, but there's a fair bit, and it's not the most exciting one, but it's all the information we have, and the whole point in this series was to get everyone ready for Alpha 2, ready to test, ready to give good feedback, ready to understand the game, and not have to spend hours and hours and hours of sifting through videos and speculation. Just a mini playlist, a mini series series to get everyone ready for Alpha 2, and I'll do it for launch, and I'll do many of these other series to break it down, so when you come into the channel you can kind of know where certain information is, classes and tips and tricks and whatnot. But I've got a lot more content coming. Obviously our guild's primary roster and myself will be playing Ashes of Creation. I will also be covering June Awakening, maybe Last Human, but obviously Ashes is, as it stands, the main goal for my community. But I would really appreciate if you could hit that subscribe button. Do drop a like, comment on any of the videos, let me know your thoughts, your feedback on the game, give the video a share, and you know, I really do appreciate you watching the video. I've had a lot of support, and I do plan on going really hard when the game drops and staying consistent to the launch of Ashes of Creation. But as always, I do appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.